interesting to chew your brain on, to try to get your teeth into that. Doesn't mean you have to believe every drop of it. It's not necessarily for spiritual sustenance, but there may be some, and I told you what I think is there. To my mind, the most spiritually sustaining point in this whole thing, aside from your primal Adam thing that I read at the beginning, which is important for many of you, for me, what's most important is the absolute righteousness. That there is no compromise, there is no bending, there is absolute and pure righteousness. Insofar as these texts recommend that, I'll go down the line for them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, it's an honor to address you. I've followed your works. And
oh, really? Great. I'm pleased with that. Glad you even knew they existed. That's kind of it.
Yeah, actually, I followed a long time. But my question would be, I really enjoy studying the origins of religions and such. And one of the reasons I do is to get a greater spiritual understanding in terms of our school. And one of the concepts that we deal with here a lot is the concept of being Christ. And that's one of the reasons I like to study your works. I'm very interested in terms of how you see, I mean, it's kind of the million-dollar question now with all the books about the historical Jesus. But, but
historical darkness.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm more interested in terms of your perspective, the transition of the concept of Messiah to Christ and how the ideal of Christ, which is so, the church has obviously propagated an ideal that's inspired many to even to go away from the church with that ideal.
Yeah, well, this relates to your previous gentleman's question. This stuff became so authoritative by the first century and things in people's mind that we're all heirs to this sense of deferring to all of these materials. I don't know how our righteous Christ might do in the modern world. That is a Christ that was unbending, that didn't have Easter rabbits, the reindeer and Christmas trees and the whole paraphernalia that people seem to relate to and love, and didn't accommodate all things to all men. And I've had students in my classes say, oh, you know what Jesus Christ is? He's me. Whatever I think he is, that's what he was. Yeah. Well, okay, but what I'm getting at is that you may be exactly correct. The Jesus idea or notion was very attractive. But I'm not sure whether it's not because they portrayed it as the heir to all this previous history and the whole, and I may not be giving a good answer to this, but it's the best I can do, and the impressiveness of this has been awe-inspiring over the millennia since then. But we haven't given the other a real chance yet, and I think that the first has really, to my mind, the first went down the drain in the Auschwitz death camps. That's my honest feeling. That could never have happened in an environment of fairness and an environment that people had not been infected with all kinds of hatred. And I think there was a direct pipeline from that into what happened. I don't want to go into it. You all know what it is I'm talking about. Some people ask me, what was it like? I visited those places. And honestly, it was like going into a temple of death. That's what it was like. To my mind, that is where Western civilization fell to pieces. Because those are all people that we're heirs to. Now, we can come out of that. We don't need that on our conscience, and we shouldn't have that on our conscience. And I don't want that Peter in Scripture on my conscience, because I know that wasn't the historical Peter. And I know the Jesus of Scripture is not the historical Jesus. And I know a lot of other things, too, about those portrayals. So I think we can give these other things a chance. And we can also work our way out of this collapse of Western civilization. You know, our age is not going to be remembered for much except what I just told you. No one 100, 200, 500 years is going to be able to believe what we did in our time. From the First World War into the Second World War. No one is going to be able to believe it if we're all here to live that long. It's going to be looked upon like horror show. And some of those TV things that we see these people strutting around and behaving the way they're behaving, where are the voices that were to prevent this? So we have a lot of problems, and I think we can start to get out of them by first sorting out the history and getting it correct. So what you're asking, what about the beauty of these concepts? What about the things that do mean something? And you're referring to some of the historical points of the Jesus seminar, for instance, in Northern California.
Well, actually, let me interrupt you. I'm more interested in what you see the early Jewish transformation of the concept of Messiah from the more ancient non-Messiah views to Messiah at the time they believed in it to the Greek Christos.
Yeah.
There's a great transition there.
You can do a better job on it than me, but I just want to say one comment. I'll try to answer your thing then finally. That is on this Jesus seminar thing. as I've tried to tell you over and over again, you can't take votes about these things. This is not like, how many believe this, how many believe that, okay, majority votes. All you can do is like the money changer simile. You got to use your intellectual brain and penetrate the veil of secrecy and other things that have been cloaked, that this has been cloaked in. And we have the wherewithal with the scrolls, thank God, to do this somewhat. So this thing you're talking about, the development of the Messianic idea, it's a dangerous idea, no doubt. It produced a lot of negativity, and I'm not terribly impressed by it. You know, it worries me a whole lot, and I agree with you there. I don't know how it moved from Messianism to Christos, but the primal Adam idea, which I have said in my books is the basis of the Christos, what was being called Christos in Greek, was in my mind in Syriac and elsewhere primal Adam. Now I can find this primal Adam idea in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now the primal Adam idea is this person who goes into bodies, puts on the cloak of these bodies in age to age, and moves from person to person, taking on and off the cloak of the body. That is how I began all these things with, and that directly relates to things you people are doing and hearing and experiencing. So I think that is basically a religiously, morally harmless and in fact perhaps helpful idea. I don't think that that has got all this negativity associated that we get in the, to my mind, falsification of Scripture in interest of Roman power.
Sure.
That is a totally different ballgame. But we have to sort all these things out in order to get the ball rolling on the right track in the Western civilization sphere, fortunately or unfortunately, of which we are a part. As I said, we only live 30 or 40 mature years. And we have an obligation to try to sort those things out intellectually so the next generation is not burdened by what we failed to sort out. So that's what we have to do. And I don't know if the Messianic idea will help us in this. He never did come, and he still isn't coming, and we might wait another 100,000 years for the return of the Messiah. I'm not sure that's going to help us, but the primal Adam ideology, the putting on the cloak of the body, that idea you might find very sustaining, and I think many of you do. So with that, I thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Read the book, that's all I can say. And thanks a lot. I really appreciate your warmth. It's quite gratifying. No one ever receives me as warmly as you, and that's very kind of you to express that. Thanks a lot. I get a lot of hatred in the world, I can tell you that, but very rarely any warmth.
Thank you very much for coming.